You skipped breakfast this morning. Maybe you told yourself you weren't hungry. Maybe you were running late. Either way, your body noticed. It flooded your blood with a stress hormone called cortisol, just in case you were starving. You weren't starving, but your body didn't know that. Your body still thinks it's living 40,000 years ago. And the story of what your ancestors actually ate is far stranger than meat or berries or any of the simple answers you've heard before. It's a story about famine, feast, and a body built for a world that no longer exists. Start with a single, uncomfortable fact. For most of human history, there was no such thing as 3 meals a day. There was no such thing as a reliable meal at all. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham at Harvard has spent decades studying what early humans actually put in their mouths, and his research points somewhere unexpected, not toward meat, not toward vegetables, toward fire. Wrangham's cooking hypothesis argues that the moment early humans learned to cook food, everything changed. Raw food is hard to digest. Your gut has to work overtime to break it down, burning enormous amounts of energy just to extract a fraction of the calories inside. Cooking does that work for you. It breaks down fibers before they ever reach your stomach. It unlocks calories that would otherwise pass right through you. This one shift, learning to control fire, may have done something extraordinary. It may have freed up enough energy for the human brain to grow. Think about that for a moment. Your brain, right now, is burning through roughly 1/5 of your daily energy. 1/5. For an organ that makes up only 2% of your body weight. That kind of expensive tissue doesn't evolve by accident. Something had to pay for it. Cooking may have been the down payment, but cooking didn't mean stability. Not even close. Ancient humans were not sitting down to consistent meals. They were living inside boom and bust cycles that would terrify anyone today. A successful hunt might mean gorging on meat and fat until you physically couldn't eat anymore. A failed hunt might mean days, sometimes weeks, with almost nothing. Feast, famine, over and over, generation after generation. This wasn't a diet. It was a survival pattern, and your body remembers it. Here's where the science gets strange. Your body was never designed to handle constant abundance. It was designed to handle scarcity, punctuated by rare moments of plenty. Every fat cell in your body is, in a sense, a tiny insurance policy against a famine that, for most of you reading this, will never come. Researcher Kim Hill, who has spent years studying the Ache people of Paraguay, one of the last populations to live largely as hunter-gatherers, documented just how unpredictable this lifestyle really was. Hunts failed far more often than they succeeded. Some days brought an abundance of meat. Many days brought almost nothing at all. The diet wasn't a steady rotation of balanced meals. It was feast, followed by hunger, followed by feast again. Now picture that same body, tuned by hundreds of thousands of years of feast and famine, dropped into a grocery store. Aisles of food, available every hour of every day, requiring no hunt, no wait, no uncertainty at all. Your body has no idea what to do with that. This mismatch has a name. Researchers call it evolutionary mismatch, the idea that a trait shaped by ancient conditions can become a liability in modern ones. Your craving for sugar and fat isn't a flaw, it's a feature. It kept your ancestors alive when calories were rare and unpredictable. But that same craving, in a world of unlimited access, doesn't know when to stop. Consider sugar specifically. In the wild, sugar was almost always attached to something valuable. Ripe fruit. Honey, guarded fiercely by bees, and prized enough that some hunter-gatherer groups risked serious injury just to reach it. Sugar meant energy, and energy was survival. So your brain evolved to treat sugar as a reward, releasing dopamine, the chemical tied to pleasure and motivation, every time you tasted something sweet. That reward system still runs today. Except now, sugar isn't rare. It's everywhere. It's in your coffee, your bread, your condiments. Your brain still lights up the same way it did when your ancestors found a beehive. But the beehive never runs out anymore. Fat tells a similar story, and it might be even stranger than sugars. In the modern world, fat has a bad reputation. But for most of human history, fat was the single most prized substance a hunter could bring home. Anthropologist Kristen Hawkes, who studied the Hadza people of Tanzania, found something that surprised a lot of researchers. Hunters didn't just go after any animal. They took enormous risks, often failing for days or weeks at a time, specifically chasing large game that offered fat and marrow, not the smaller, easier, more reliable prey around them. Why take that risk? Because fat is the most energy-dense substance available in nature. Gram for gram, it holds more than twice the energy of protein or carbohydrates. In a world where the next meal was never guaranteed, Fat wasn't indulgence. It was the most efficient insurance policy your ancestors could find. Your brain still treats fat that way. That's why a fatty, rich meal can feel deeply satisfying in a way that a plain, lean one doesn't. It isn't a modern failure of taste. It's an ancient, deeply rational preference, wired in by hundreds of thousands of years spent hunting exactly that kind of food at real physical risk, because it was worth it. There's another wrinkle here, and it might be the strangest one yet. Your ancestors didn't just crave energy-dense food. They craved variety, because variety meant nutritional insurance. No single plant or animal contained everything the body needed. A diet built entirely around one food source, even a calorie-rich one, could quietly leave you missing something essential, some mineral or vitamin absent from that single source. This is likely part of why boredom with food is such a strong, universal signal. Eating the exact same meal, day after day, doesn't just feel dull. On some old, buried level, it can feel faintly risky. Your brain is nudging you to diversify, the same way it once nudged your ancestors to try a new root, a new berry, a new patch of forest, because relying on just one food source was a gamble nature rarely rewarded. There's another piece of this puzzle, and it's easy to overlook. It isn't just what ancient humans ate, it's how often and with whom. Food wasn't a solitary transaction back then. It was deeply social. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer societies have found that meat, in particular, was almost always shared across the group, not hoarded by whoever made the kill. This wasn't generosity for its own sake. It was survival math. Sharing food today meant others would share with you tomorrow when your own hunt inevitably failed. Eating, in other words, wasn't just about calories. It was about connection. And your brain still treats it that way. That's part of why a meal alone can feel strangely empty, while the same meal shared with people you care about feels satisfying in a way that has nothing to do with the food itself. So what did ancient humans actually eat? Not a fixed menu, not a single formula you can copy today. The honest answer is almost unsettlingly simple. Whatever the environment allowed, in whatever unpredictable amounts nature provided. In coastal regions, that might mean shellfish and fish, rich in the fatty acids your brain still depends on today. In grasslands, it might mean large game, eaten in massive, calorie-dense bursts. In forests, it might mean roots, nuts, and insects filling the gaps between hunts. There was no single ancestral diet. There were thousands of them, shaped by geography, by season, by pure luck. What they all shared wasn't a specific food. It was a rhythm, unpredictability, scarcity more often than abundance, movement because finding food meant walking, sometimes for miles, and food, when it came, usually came with other people. Your modern life keeps almost none of that rhythm. Food arrives constantly, not occasionally. It requires almost no physical effort to obtain, and it's often eaten alone, in a car, at a desk, in front of a screen. None of this means your ancestors ate a better diet, exactly, if that word even makes sense for them. Their lives were shorter, harder, full of real hunger, real risk, and real death from starvation in ways almost no one reading this will ever face. Nobody serious wants to trade that life for this one, but there's still something worth sitting with. Your body wasn't built for what it lives in now. It was built for scarcity, and it's living inside abundance. It was built for unpredictability, and it's living inside routine. It was built for shared meals, and it's often fed alone. That gap between the world your biology expects and the world you actually inhabit is where a huge amount of modern struggle with food quietly lives. Not because you lack discipline, not because something is wrong with you, but because your body is still, in a very real sense, preparing for a famine that isn't coming. There's one more layer to this, and it might be the most personal one. Your metabolism itself was shaped by this uncertainty. Biologist James Neal proposed an idea decades ago known as the thrifty gene hypothesis. The theory suggests that populations who survived repeated famine may have evolved bodies exceptionally good at storing energy during times of plenty, precisely because storing fat efficiently was once the difference between surviving a lean season and not surviving it at all. The hypothesis has been debated and refined over the years, and researchers still argue over the details. But the broader pattern it points to keeps showing up across the science of human metabolism. A body optimized for scarcity, when placed in permanent abundance, doesn't simply shrug and adjust. It keeps doing what kept your ancestors alive. It stores. It craves. It prepares for a winter that, for most of you, will never arrive. This is also why so many modern approaches to eating feel like a fight against your own biology, because in a very real sense, they are. Telling a body that spent hundreds of thousands of years preparing for famine to simply eat less runs directly against ancient, deeply wired instincts. That doesn't mean those instincts can't be worked with. It means they deserve to be understood rather than treated as some kind of personal failure. So tonight, when you sit down to eat, maybe think about it differently. Not as a failure of willpower if you want a second helping. Not as a flaw if sugar feels almost impossible to resist, but as 100,000 years of ancient instinct, quietly steering a body that was never built for the world you built around it. You didn't skip breakfast because something is broken in you. Your body has been waiting for a famine for 40,000 years. It's still waiting. And it has no idea it can finally stop.